When making paper by hand, one can embed rich symbolism in transforming one material into another. Let's see how Paper Dolls, Stories from Women Who Served by Pam DeLuco, and Reentry Bill of Rights, A Blueprint for Keeping Us Safe by Reentry Think Tank, incorporate hand paper making into projects that humanize and amplify real people's voices. Pam DeLuco runs Shotwell Paper Mill in the Mission District of San Francisco. Hand-making paper out of recycled, reclaimed, and urban foraged materials, she works with communities, organizations, and individuals on projects that embed rich story and meaning within handmade paper. DeLuco primarily focuses on paper making, but has made the occasional book project, such as Paper Dolls, Stories from Women Who Served. DeLuco connected with women veterans of all ages and asked them to tell a story through their military uniform. Paper dolls are familiar objects. DeLuco knew that they would be a recognizable and potentially interactive medium to enter into the world of women in the military. The book features first-person stories from 20 women who served in different military branches, with veterans who served as early as the 1960s, to others who are still actively enrolled. Each text comes with a corresponding uniform. The clothing and the paper doll on the front cover were illustrated by artist Anne Marie Ray. The stories are not presented chronologically or clustered by military segment. Rather, they build on each other to convey the meaning, challenges, and depth of pride the women take in their service. All of the pieces note the woman's first name on a tab. Aside from keeping the different elements organized, I find this a nice detail because it gently affirms the real person behind these standard issue uniforms. Sometimes only one part of the uniform is included, emphasizing the significance of that article of clothing in the story. This is the case for Joanne Martinez's military standard issue purse. She notes that receiving this purse marks the beginning of a powerful rite of passage where you will quickly assimilate into a new culture, one that you will leave behind one day, one that won't necessarily leave you. The covers and the illustrated pages are all printed on handmade paper. Many of the women donated their own uniforms to be pulped and transformed into the paper for this book. Some contributors were also able to participate in the process of making the paper, and over half of the women hand-set the lead type for their own stories. Many of the details were hand-colored on each print, such as this blue beret and ascot. Jennifer had to wear these to identify her as part of an international mission in Liberia, assembled with individuals from over 20 countries. While she broke barriers as the first woman in this operations section, she always felt she had to work more and harder than men to prove herself. Sometimes men on this mission who came from different countries wouldn't hesitate to let her know that they believed women had less mental capacity and strength. In response, she engaged them in discussion. We are strong, capable, competent, dedicated, and able to defend our country at a moment's notice. Some stories are humorous. Kimberly Hearthsong was a newly deployed aircraft maintenance officer in the Persian Gulf War. This was a new level for women to lead after President Reagan opened up many of the military specialties to women in 1988. After an extremely long and hot day, she took off her boots. The red toenail polish that she describes as a cherished hidden piece of femininity had melted and stuck to the fibers of her socks. With humor and flirtation, she tells how she returned to the tool room for acetone to soak off the nail polish and her socks. The relationship to uniforms isn't always positive. Ardrina Hoxie, a military sexual trauma survivor, notes how she preferred the male working uniform because, being a woman of African descent, the female uniform was tight and form-fitting, leading to unwarranted and unwanted attention. Overall, pride and strength flows throughout these women's connections to their uniforms. The last story in the book recalls the waves of emotion that passed through Kelly A. McFarland while she was being fitted for her Chief Petty Officer service dress white uniform. It was a poignant moment of humility, responsibility, and honor. Her final words are, "I am not sure the adage of clothes make the individual is true. What I can say, most assuredly and with strong conviction, is that the right clothing can make an individual better and stronger than they ever thought." DeLuco designed the book for multiple forms of interaction. The screw post binding allows the reader to take the book apart. We could display all of the pages on a wall, cut out the doll and clothes, and perhaps reassemble just the text pages. Or perhaps you just want to keep it as this book. The choice is ours. But however you engage with it, these stories and uniforms give us deep insight into women's lives in the military. Courtney Bowles and Mark Strandquist have led numerous projects that integrate art as a vehicle to amplify, celebrate, and power social justice movements. Their work combines organizing strategies and urgently needed services with collaborative, poetic, and performative actions. They note that culture must shift before policies ever will. For them, art is the tool and weapon to destroy stereotypes and then rebuild on that foundation. Reentry Bill of Rights, a blueprint for keeping us safe, is written by and for individuals re-entering society after incarceration. Many hands and voices came together to create these words, images, and this physical object. Organized by artists Bowles and Strandquist, the Reentry Think Tank connects formerly incarcerated people with artists and advocates to transform the perceptions, social services, and platforms that impact our lives and communities. Bowles and Strandquist developed Reentry Bill of Rights with 23 participants of the Think Tank Fellowship. Each fellow was nominated by reentry organizations from across Philadelphia. They worked together throughout the gathering, sharing, and advocacy processes that ultimately led to this portfolio. The first print features the preamble to the Reentry Bill of Rights. Equal parts poem and declaration, this preamble was co-written by the Think Tank Fellows. It unequivocally declares the humanity of individuals with prison records, a necessary statement in a society that has a hard time seeing past the singular identity of criminal. The preamble reminds us that the formerly incarcerated are family, friends, and community members who have a multitude of knowledge, skills, and experiences to offer. The second page of the preamble notes that there are things that need to happen and perspectives that need to change so that these citizens can flourish and achieve their dreams. The 8 articles lay out important frameworks to make this happen. Every page features a portrait, offering faces to a demographic of people often seen only through the lens of their incarceration. These are not just declarations of who, they are invitations. See me. I want a beautiful future. Are you part of it? The bold statements fill me with compassion and energy. Behind each one is a powerful undercurrent of reclaimed dignity and aspiration. A foundational tenet of Bowles and Strandquist's artist activism is that the people impacted by the systems being confronted are the experts that society needs to hear from directly. They explained to me that a transformative art practice leads to questions of who tells your story, What happens because of it? And then, importantly, how do you reclaim your story? From 2016 to 2018, the Reentry Think Tank Fellows interviewed more than 1,200 Philadelphians with criminal records. Partnering with legal clinics and reentry programs across the city, the conversations began with a question. If you were in power, what would you do to keep people free? Their collected responses were edited together to create these texts. The calligraphy connects the words with the hand, affirming the personal and human. Certain phrases stand out in each design too, emphasizing needs and ambitions. Nestled within the red line that flows across the pages, the articles are distinguished from the rest of the text. Each one is specific and clear. Article 3, Education helps us reach new heights. Article 4, Restorative justice helps us all heal. As the ribbon flows in a connected line across all 8 pages, I am reminded that just like these people, none of the articles exist in isolation. They are overlapping elements that all need to be addressed and elevated. This man's arm covering his face stops me with its posture of strength and defense. I am moved by the depth and complexity of the statements, how they simultaneously look inward and outward. Alongside housing is a human right is a firm reinforcement that each human is an individual with distinct backgrounds, experiences, and support. Throughout the paper, we can see pieces of torn-up records, like bits of confetti floating in the air. Reentry Bill of Rights was letterpress and screen printed on paper handmade by formerly incarcerated women in the People's Paper Co-op's Art and Advocacy Fellowship. Criminal records were shredded, pulped, and transformed into new sheets of handmade paper. It is an important symbolic process to destroy a record legally and to reconstruct it into something new and beautiful that changes the narrative. This suite of prints can be read individually, like loose pages of a book, allowing a reader to sit with and contemplate each article one by one. They can also be displayed like posters on the wall, bringing the lens further out from the individual. Reentry Bill of Rights has had a significant life beyond these prints on paper. It has been an advocacy tool and a vehicle to reach audiences that may not typically create space for these conversations. Among many public events, it was read and received by the Philadelphia Mayor's Office. However one engages with Reentry Bill of Rights, we are given insight and guidance that reinforces the humanity of formerly incarcerated people and tells us what they need for success. Paper Dolls, Stories from Women Who Served, and Reentry Bill of Rights, a blueprint for keeping us safe, both build on the power of papermaking, listening, and collaborative community building. Directly through the hands and voices of individuals with real-life insights, we gain understanding of their lived experiences and transformative empowerment.